Hope everybody's doing well today. I want to jump on here, of course, and talk about Melissa as it is making landfall as we speak. Off on the right-hand side of your screen, you see the eye wall making its approach between White House and Black River, which that should be where our eye touches, right in between there. In the next few minutes, we are expecting this to actually happen as this next 20 to 30 minutes occurs, so getting up to around noon. Want to zoom in and just show you the areas that will be greatly impacted and just walk you through some of what we'll likely see with this. So right in here, which is going to be around Bruce's Hill, Crawford, and up around Tanky Gate, Whitewood. I think the actual eye wall, we're likely going to count it as one of the beaches here by Crawford, Jamaica, and should be again in the next half hour so that we get the advisory from the Hurricane Center. The recons that have been flying today, we have two planes that were in there. The NOAA 23, that Mission 23, that's going to be one of the research planes that takes off out of Lakeland, Florida. And you can see that while they're heading back now, they made their pass through the eye wall. And there's some very interesting data that has come out of this. Greg Postel, who is one of the doctors at the Weather Channel, very respected, and I like this guy a lot, noting that as they did one of the dropsondes, we noted around 252 mile per hour wind. But hold on, that's not at the surface. That's at elevation, and when you're talking, 250 meters roughly up, so we're talking, 900 to 1100 feet up. So when you bring that down to the surface, it's still likely over 200 miles an hour. It's pretty incredible, but that might go down as one of our highest hurricane measurements from the dropsondes out of the planes that do all the research out there. So again, I want to just step back and talk about, we also had, there is another plane currently in there, the Air Force 303. That's going to be a different group. That's out of Keesler Air Force Base in Mississippi, and those are the C-130s. Those are bigger planes. They're more sturdy. They are the ones that give us those measurements every 3 hours, especially when we have an imminent landfall. And then the NOAA 42 and 43, those are the ones taking out of the Aircraft Operations Center in Lakeland, Florida. And those are the ones I've flown with the most. And it is a plane that typically stays in a hurricane a little bit longer and also gives you better research, essentially, is what we get out of this system. So, having said that, this is that flat bridge that you've seen a lot on the news. And just to get your bearings, the road goes right here, and then it cuts across. So what you're seeing is water dropping off the backside of the bridge right there, and it clearly completely flooded. And this is before really any of the heavy rainfall arrives. These have just been the outer and middle bands in this region. In Kingston Bay, you can see it quite chopped up and rough, and it will be the case as this entire thing makes landfall. With them being on the right side and far enough that we will still have major impacts in this, but the storm surge won't be nearly as devastating in this region, which is great. This is our most populated area of Jamaica. But having said that, the rainfall that comes with it and still some swell that gets pushed up into the bay, when you add in the terrain around Jamaica, it doesn't take much rain at all to run off and have flash flooding. So the amounts of rain that we're talking about will be pretty significant. This is the Little London that's in that area of southwestern Jamaica, and that one is already down. Want to show you on AccuWeather's site, they were showing a live radar, but I want to caution folks on this, and I'm not faulting AccuWeather for this because they have a data vendor that is what's supplying this. But Jamaica does not have a radar system. There's not a national network like in the U.S. where we have our NexRad radars, spread out every couple hundred miles around the U.S. So what you're looking at here is not actual radar, even though it says Jamaica Weather Radar. It's not. It's a satellite that is interpreting the cloud heights, the cloud temperatures, and then it's giving a depiction of what it thinks the radar is. But you can see the whole thing just goes sideways here as you play this out through 10, 11, and 12 o'clock. That is not what the hurricane will look like. This is just imagery going sideways. And if anything, I would think people that do have this up will probably want to pull this because it's not giving any information. It's not helpful. As you can see, that's not what a hurricane will be doing. So just wanted to put that out there as a heads up if you do run into that in some of the sites. Latest stats as of a half hour ago were just incredible. 185 mile per hour sustained winds, so around close to 300 kilometers an hour. It is about 60 kilometers to the southeast of Negril. And this isn't an area where there's much fewer tourist spots, but still very populated part of Jamaica with the locals. And of course, the movement is what's been so slow. Now moving northeast at about 9 miles per hour. So it is starting to pick up a little bit of speed as we were watching in the last 3 or 4 hours of this come together. Intensity should come down quite a bit. We do expect that as it makes landfall, and unlikely that it's going to regenerate to that strength as we go through the other side of Jamaica, through Cuba, and then into the Bahamas and also the Turks and Caicos. So with that said, I want to jump over and talk about that forecast track and what we're likely looking at timing-wise for those of you who are traveling and follow this. Clearly, everybody has cleared out of the area of Jamaica. In fact, you can see right here just this big hole of no ships and no traffic, thankfully. This one that you're looking at, this tanker right here, that's an old reading from the AIS, and that does happen sometimes. That's about 18 hours old, going on 19 hours old. So they are almost certainly over in this region right here, and that was about the only thing that was out there in the region of Jamaica. Now, as this comes through in the next couple of days through that channel that we use to get from the U.S. down to the Eastern Caribbean, but as well as Dominican and Puerto Rico, that's going to be completely cut off as we go through Wednesday, pretty much the entire day. And then as we get into the overnight hours, the early morning hours of Thursday, we should start to see the storm farther north enough that, in fact, I'll plot this up for you. When we're talking, central Bahamas, then that channel has opened up, and that's about 3 a.m. on Thursday. So, for example, I believe Symphony's leaving tomorrow around 4 or 5 o'clock, I think 5 o'clock, and heading south to go to Dominican and Puerto Rico area. So, as it drops down Wednesday, leaving, by the time they get down into this area, I feel like the storm will be at a safe enough distance and pulling away that you're likely not looking at any delays in getting to your ports. But if this by any chance were to slow down, that's going to change things. But right now it looks like it would time out just well enough that you're not in any serious delays. However, just touching on Bahamas, we got a lot of folks in the Bahamas curious about this. As far as the ports go, they're all up here: Nassau, Freeport, and then Berry Islands. That's all the private islands that each cruise line has. That's this region right here. So the storm never really touches those areas other than some outer rain bands and some choppy surf. So what we're looking at is more of the areas that aren't necessarily cruise ship ports, but still a ton of visitors in this area with their small personal craft or chartered craft. So this is just going to absolutely nail Clarence Town, Port Nelson, Cockburn Town, and those islands and regions in between these cities. This is going to be overnight Wednesday night into Thursday. And unfortunately, that's one of the most ominous, scary times to deal with a hurricane because you can't see it, but you can hear it and feel everything that it's dishing out. I'll post one of the flights I took with the Hurricane Hunters. It was a nighttime flight, Hurricane Matthew. And I'm in the jump seat. You can actually see the instruments, you can see the shaking and nothing else. It was unbelievable to look out the window, see pitch black, every now and then flash of lightning, but couldn't see anything, but you hear it, you feel it, an incredibly ominous time. Putting up the track very quickly, want to take us back so you can see the official time from the Hurricane Center and what we're expecting with Melissa. So landfall again, imminent between now and top of the hour. We should have this making actual landfall. The track here again was a little to the east of Black River, and if you saw yesterday's video, you likely noted that I had the track a little further west myself as a forecast because the models were trending more west, and that does look like that's what we're actually going to get, is more of a track here. Even the European is off a little bit to the north. So I think right in this area should be our landfall here coming up in the next half hour. If you have questions that you want to ask, please drop them down in the comments and I'll come back around and get to them. It's a one-man band here, so I don't have the aid of others helping me with the questions they're saying in chat or anything. So I'm going to come back through those and answer them for you, whether you have a travel question or just a general concern over Jamaican residents. We've got some close family friends that are Jamaicans and have basically their entire family down there around the Kingston area. So I do get that and would be happy to talk to you about it. Want to also talk about those rainfall totals that you've been hearing about. What's the latest on that? Still just absolutely incredible amounts of rain will be falling. So let me take you through the event. Highest amounts right now are looking like it would pass over Montego Bay, Cambridge, and Falmouth, which are cruise ports. Now, these amounts are significantly lower than what it had been looking like, and my hope is that this will be due to the increased forward speed. However, I still think there are going to be areas around Jamaica that get over a foot of rain. There could be a few neighborhoods and communities that get over 2 feet of rain in this, but I don't think it's going to be blanketing the entire island with 2 feet of rain, 3 feet of rain. It's still bad enough, though, with terrain. It takes just a couple inches to completely flood out the valleys in most areas around the world. So if we're talking anywhere of, closing in on 10 inches to a foot of rain, this will be devastating in a lot of areas. And then the other thing I want to talk about, because we do have ships that will come into Falmouth and Ocho Rios in the days ahead, so long as there's not damage to the port. The swell won't be a problem because it's all coming up from the south. The winds, as this starts to move through, the eye likely passing either directly over Falmouth or just next to it. And as that takes place, we would be looking at winds in the eye closing in on, I believe we're going to be, it's weakening as it crosses, but we're still likely calling this a hurricane technically by the standards of wind speeds. As it's exiting Jamaica, which we saw that in Florida too with Charlie. It was still technically a hurricane as it passed over Orlando as far as the parameters go, but to be a true hurricane, of course, needs to be over water. But it helps illustrate that even after it's churned through the terrain, which will weaken it, and a good bit of land where there's no hot water to influence this will still have hurricane strength winds. I feel like those are low enough, though, that ports should have good enough infrastructure that'd be minimal damage. So anybody who would be visiting these regions next week, and even late this week, Friday or this weekend, I think we'll open up the port fairly quickly for Falmouth, likely Ocho Rios and Montego Bay. But what needs to happen, just so you know, it will take some time. They have to get out in the port. They have to do a survey of the water underneath to make sure there aren't any sunken ships, sailboats, or anything that could hit ship rudders or do damage to the bottom of the hulls and the keels. And once they can do those assessments, then they'll open the port back up for business and we resume. But that is very likely a couple days past Wednesday, if not all the way through early next week, depending on the types of damage that we do see take place. So with that said, again, we'll be watching around the cameras and get an idea of what we could see in the days ahead. This one is a pretty good one. I want to give a shout out to the guy that goes by Dad Guide as a handle. Can relate to that. This one is Cam, as it refreshes, that's Treasure Beach, which is right in that area of the eye. And in fact, I would anticipate this webcam goes down very soon, if not already, just because of the strength. But now look, you can see it's actually very pixelated, but you can see the winds blowing the vegetation and the heavy rains that come with it. But if you want to find him on YouTube again, Dad Guide, if you want to search, looks like there's a few people watching right now. And again, good job on getting this camera or finding it, as it's going to be one of the only ones in the direct path of Melissa that we have access to outside of Jamaica. And again, you can see debris piling up on our flat bridge there, which connects Kingston to the northern cities, going up to Ocho Rios, Dunn's River and the falls there. This is one of the main roads you cross there, and you can see debris starting to pile up. But that's the actual bridge right there. This is off the bridge. That's the river. So it's a very skinny bridge that you cross, and then it turns off to the left there. So I'll pop in again and jump on and answer some of those questions for you in the comment section. And a little bit later, we may do another live. But just wanted to give you our Tuesday latest on this. And I figured doing a live versus a recorded was the better way to go, because then you have the absolute latest information on this. But it will be historic. 185 mile per hour sustained winds as the eye closes in is just... Anybody who lives in any hurricane country, from the Carolinas down to Florida and the Keys and the Bahamas, know that is about as bad as it gets. And with the dropson that came from the research planes indicating there could be pieces of the eye that are over 200 miles an hour, I'm a deeply faithful man. I've been praying for Jamaica and the residents, especially in the area southwest Jamaica, and hoping for the best, as by far this will be the hardest hit that the entire storm produces. Cuba will not take as hard of a hit. Turks and Caicos or Bahamas will not. And then, of course, it's on up into the North Atlantic. Still watching Bermuda. Yes, it will pass by there. In the days ahead, I'll be jumping on and talking about that for you, for ships who are headed in that region. But in the meantime, that is our latest on Melissa. So I'll get to answering your questions in comments, both on X and on YouTube. And in the meantime, stay safe out